Hello everyone, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Lubna Siddiqui from Geography Department, JMI. Today we will discuss about role of national and international NGOs and civil societies in disaster management, which comes under the paper Disaster Management. Now, introduction. India is highly vulnerable to a large number of natural hazards such as earthquakes, landslides, floods, droughts, river erosion, cyclones and tsunamis. Many areas are multi-hazard prone. Compounding these disaster risks are factors such as our socio-economic conditions, unplanned urbanization creating increased risk to the built environment, environmental degradation and the impact of epidemics and pandemics. All these point to a future where disasters will seriously threaten India's economy, its population and sustainable development unless swift, effective and persistent measures are taken. Disaster risk recognize no political boundaries and losses on account of disasters are on the rise with grave consequences for hard-won development gains and the very survival, dignity and livelihood of individuals, particularly the poor. Actions in one region can have an impact on risk in another. There is now international acknowledgement that efforts to reduce disaster risk must be systematically integrated into policies, plans and programs for sustainable development and poverty reduction and supported through bilateral, regional and international cooperation, including partnerships. Though the whole world faces frequent and severe disasters, the developing countries suffer much more significantly the impact thereof. Those living in developing countries are naturally much more adversely affected as compared to those in the developed world, largely on account of their inherent vulnerabilities and the lack of preparedness. A major concern in recognition of the importance of disaster management as a national priority, Government of India in 2005 enacted the Disaster Management Act 2005, that is 53 of 2005. The Disaster Management Act 2005 recognizes that hazard, risk and vulnerability in the specific geographic areas may induce disasters. The proactive approach in the DM Act 2005, including coordination of the activities of the NGOs at various levels, addresses disaster risk and vulnerability through pre-disaster preparedness and multi-stakeholder participation. The Act entrusts the state executive committees and district authorities with the responsibility to advise, assist, coordinate and encourage the involvement of NGOs and civil society organizations working at grassroots level in the districts for disaster management. Sections 38(2)(a), 22(2)(j and 32(19) of the Act mandate every state government, SEC of SDMA and DDMA respectively for collaboration with stakeholder agencies including NGOs for the purpose of improving the effectiveness of DM. Similarly, the Act mandates NGOs to act in an equitable and non-discriminatory manner for the purpose of assisting or protecting the disaster-affected communities or for providing relief to the affected communities or while dealing with any effects of threatening disaster situations and has fixed the responsibility to monitor this on SEC and DDMAs of the state-wide sections 24J and 34I respectively, source DM Act 2005. Now, National Policy on Disaster Management 2009. Disaster management involves a continuous and integrated process of planning, organizing, coordinating, and implementing measures. Therefore, NDMA had adopted a step-by-step procedure starting with the formulation of national policy on disaster management. This policy has resulted into disaster-specific guidelines through a mission mode approach involving a number of initiatives with the help of various stakeholders concerned with administrative, academic, scientific and technical and NGOs operating at national, state and local levels. NPDM 2009 with a vision to build a safer and disaster resilient India by developing a holistic, proactive, multi-disaster oriented and technology driven strategy through a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness and response outlines following provisions for greater involvement of NGOs or civil society. According to para 5.3.3, stakeholders participation. The participation of civil society stakeholders will be coordinated by the SDMAs and DDMAs. Civil Defense, NCC, NYKS, NSS and local NGOs will be encouraged to empower the community and generate awareness through their respective institutional mechanisms. Efforts to promote voluntary involvement will be actively encouraged. Now, according to para 7.4.1, role of state, district and local authorities. It is the primary responsibility of the state governments or SDMAs to monitor and assess any developing situation and keep the NDMA and NEC apprised of the same. They will also be responsible to constantly evaluate their own capabilities to handle that situation and project the anticipated requirements for the central resources well in time. Interstate assistance and cooperation will be encouraged. The states and union territories will also be responsible to develop their own response potential progressively and complete the process at the earliest. This will comprise training and equipping of state response forces, community preparedness, training and creation of response caches at the district level. District level preparations will provide the cutting edge to all response activities. Local authorities, PRIs and ULBs will play a significant role in the entire process, particularly in response and rescue operations, relief and rehabilitation, awareness generation and disaster preparedness, restoration of livelihood options and coordination with NGOs and civil society. Now, according to para 9.2.1, owner-driven reconstruction. Reconstruction plans and designing of houses need to be a participatory process involving the government, affected community, NGOs and the corporate sector. After the planning process is over, while owner-driven construction is a preferred option, contribution of the NGOs and corporate sector will be encouraged. Reconstruction program will be within the confines and the qualitative specifications laid down by the government. Now, according to para 10.4.1, that is training of communities. Building the capacity of communities as they are the first responders to disasters is a significant part of the capacity development process. It will include awareness, sensitization, orientation, and developing skills of communities and community leaders. Assistance from NGOs and other voluntary organizations such as the Red Cross and self-help groups will be encouraged. The overall responsibility to give impetus to leadership and motivation will rest with local authorities, PRIs and ULBs under the overall guidance of district and state authorities. The paradigm shift in disaster management brought together the representatives of various stakeholders such as central ministries, departments, state governments, science and technology institutions, corporate sector, NGOs, CBOs, etc. This ideology emphasizes the fact that we must learn from each other to deal with many emerging concerns that pose challenges different from what we are used to facing. Phenomena such as glacial melt, sea level rise, global warming and climate change, etc. are posing new challenges to the mankind. Concerns such as business processes continuity are also beginning to engage attention of governments and the corporate sector all over the world. It is now well recognized in the new disaster management mechanism that prevention and mitigation are socially and economically more profitable investments than relief and rehabilitation. The success of disaster management efforts lies largely in integrating the various phases such as prevention or response and creating essential forward and backward linkages. No government can cope with the challenges of disaster management all by itself. NGOs and civil society organizations have close links with the communities and have great advantage in performing tasks which require a participatory approach. Many of them in the past have made a sterling contribution to the task of disaster management. Moreover, in recent times, lessons learned from past disasters internationally as well as regionally have begun to play a significant part in reducing risk through knowledge sharing. Great care, however, needs to be taken to ensure that there is complete understanding among the various agencies and complementary pooling and sharing their strengths. Now, NDMA guidelines on role of NGOs in disaster management, that is draft 2015. To focus on relevant impinging issues, National Disaster Management Authority is in the process of finalization of national guidelines on role of NGOs in disaster management. Draft guidelines are available on internet. These guidelines in para 2.2, that is the role of NGO in disaster preparedness, provides that the SDMAs and the DDMAs will invite representative NGOs regularly to chalk out strategy and action points which could help in enhancing the preparedness through better coordination. Now, under para 4.1, early warning and evacuation, it is envisaged that NGO work closely with communities and can help mobilize communities for evacuation and taking precautions for an emerging situation. District administration would involve NGOs in dissemination of early warning information and evacuation of communities in times of need. Now, National Disaster Management Plan 2016. As per provision of Section 11 of DM Act 2005, NDMP was prepared and released by National Disaster Management Authority in June 2016. Under Para 9.3, accepting multilateral assistance, it provides that in the case of an offer of assistance from UN agencies, the India will accept the offer only if the government considers it necessary based on various factors. If accepted, Government of India will issue directions to the respective ministry or state government to coordinate with the concerned UN agency. Any financial assistance offered by UN financial institutions involving foreign exchange will require the approval of the Department of Economic Affairs, Government of India. India will allow UN agencies and international NGOs already operating in the country at the time of the disaster event to continue their humanitarian assistance to people in the affected area in coordination with the relevant central ministries or departments and the state government as per applicable norms and protocols. The NDMP, aligned with Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, has been divided into 4 national priorities, viz. Understanding risk, intra-agency coordination, inter-agency coordinations, structural and non-structural measures, and capacity building. It clearly lays down the roles and responsibilities of stakeholders in disaster preparedness, mitigation, disaster risk reduction, and response. It also encourages the NGOs to work for awareness generation, empowerment, and training of communities for disaster risk reduction. Now, role identification of NGOs or civil society organizations. Involvement of all stakeholders concerned can be ensured through NGOs or civil society organizations under proper guidance from a nodal agency. To establish horizontal and vertical linkages, ideally the NGOs should function largely at the state or district level with its offshoot connectivity at other 2 institutional levels of disaster management also. Role of NGOs under such circumstance will be to, number 1, enhance the capacity of the functionaries to respond properly during the time of emergencies. Number 2, increase awareness and participation of stakeholders, that is from village, district to state levels. Number 3, networking states for sharing of information and helping each other during the time of crisis. Number 4, strengthening district control rooms through training capacity building and provide operational manuals to function as disaster management information centers. Number 5, help district administration to set up information technology, that is IT centers. Now, way forward. A large number of NGOs are working in different areas of disaster management, including awareness generation, training, advocacy issues, response, relief, and rehabilitation. Some of them have done excellent work in the major disasters that India had to face. International NGOs have also shown their willingness to work in such situations and have made effective contributions in the last decade. It is recognized that NGOs can make substantially bigger contributions to disaster risk reduction and post-disaster management. To enable this to happen, the following are suggested. Number 1, institutionally, the strength of NGOs operational in the area must be recognized with regard to the resources, capabilities, and special skills and map them onto the disaster management plans. Number 2, district. Number 2, state or district may set up a common platform for NGOs to come together for disaster management activities at the district level with clearly delineated roles depending on their specialization and their capabilities. Number 3, DDMA may set up a single point contact for interacting with NGOs on a regular basis in normal times and on continued basis in a post-disaster situation. Number 4, many state or district departments have engaged NGOs in specific program interventions, particularly in the social sector. These programs may be used further for effective disaster risk reduction and also use the capabilities of these NGOs in improving awareness and creating a culture of safety. Number 5, government must ensure that NGOs function within the framework of equity and non-discrimination. Number 6, knowledge base available with NGOs with respect to the region, the people, customs, etc. must be used for making effective disaster management plans. Number 7, NGOs or civil society organizations, communication skills and capabilities may be used to send out messages, particularly during disasters, to ensure effective communication with the people. Number 8, international NGOs have better capabilities. Central government may set up specific systems at appropriate levels for their involvement. Number 9, training and capacity building in state-of-the-art preparedness, school safety and first aid trainings are some of the immediate fields in which NGOs or civil society organizations can have productive roles. I hope you have understood the concept of role of national and international NGOs and civil societies in disaster management. See you next time. Goodbye. Thank you.